All right, we are back today to talk about the 2025 NBA draft, of course, because that's what we've been talking about for a while. It's what we're going to continue to talk about just for a bit longer. This is a pre-recorded episode. I'm out of town the first few days of this week, so anything that happens with free agency, any trades that have happened, won't get to until Thursday. We're just going to be talking about more specifics with the 2025 class, taking a look, breaking it up by position groups, hopefully spend a few extra minutes with a number of different prospects by dividing it up without making these super long episodes. But today we're going to be talking about some of the guards from the 2025 NBA draft, taking a look at their fit now that we know where they're going to be playing next season, trying to project out a little bit. And we're going to stay away from some of the top guys because we've spent a ton of time talking about the Cooper Flags, the Dylan Harpers. We may still talk about Ace Bailey. I've spent enough time talking about Jeremiah Fears, players like that. We're going to just not talk about today, just for the sense of we're going to focus on some players that we've spent a little less time talking about, and we can focus a little bit more on the fit and how to project it from a fantasy standpoint. But before I do that, I just want to remind you guys that BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball season in full swing and football season around the corner, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news and scores, and even live in-game betting. From the MLB to the UFC to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering info. In between games, you can head over to the BetOnline casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and a live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, the first guard we're going to talk about today is Cedric Coward, who was selected by the Grizzlies with the number 12 pick in the draft. Just to talk about a few numbers here, he only played 6 games last season for Washington State, which we'll get to here in a second. But during those games, averaged 17.7 points, 7 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and 1.7 blocks per game, and also 2 threes per game. Really strong shooting splits, 55.7% from the floor, 40% from 3, 84% from the free throw line. Again, it was 6 games, and here are the 6 teams that they played against: Portland State, Bradley, Idaho, Iowa, Northern Colorado, Eastern Washington. Now, against Iowa, who I would say just off a quick glance is probably the best team there, was the game they lost. Of those, they were 5-1 in the games he played. He had 9 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, shot 3 of 10 from the floor. And then also against Idaho, had just 4 points, 1 of 3 shooting, played 27 minutes, kind of a weird game for him. Had 5 blocks, but it's also just at a really small sample size, so it's hard to draw really strong conclusions from that. But overall, the numbers did look really good, and there's not a lot here on Data Baller just because he wasn't able to test certain things, I believe. Or maybe they just don't have it on here. I'm not sure. Because actually, a lot of those scores are elsewhere on Tankathon. So just to read those, because I've referenced them a million times already. 7'2" wingspan, 38.5-inch vertical, almost a 9-foot standing range, which is really strong for a guard. Just wanted to showcase some of the numbers here on Data Baller that you can get with every prospect, which I think is really cool, but also just kind of show a little bit about what he did. Because he was at Eastern Washington for 2 years, so also the little revenge game there, and the last game that he played of last season had 22, 9, and 7. I don't know. Kind of interesting. But again, small sample size, but really strong offensive box plus minus. Strong, true shooting percentage was insane. Assist percentage was really good. Got to the free throw line at a high rate. Again, 6 games, so it's really skewed. Shooting stats, again, looks really good. We got to think about the competition that he faced at Eastern Washington, and then even though the competition was quote unquote a little better at Washington State, only played 6 games, and it wasn't it wasn't in conference games or anything like that. Insanely high percentage at the rim, 73.7% on 5.3. Is that rim attempts per 100 possessions, I believe? Yeah. Which was, I guess, similar to what he did the 2 years at Eastern Washington. really high mid-range percentage, like 66.7% last year, 57.9% the year before. 40% from three, as we said before. High free throw percentage, 84% almost. The block rate was really strong, but was also really strong his previous season at Eastern Washington. So a lot of these numbers, it's not like they totally came out of nowhere and then he only played 6 games. It's like this is what he was doing the year before as well, but he was obviously the competition level was a little different and the amount of games played was a little different. So what do we kind of learn about this type of player, about Cedric Coward? That there's a good bit to like, I think. And it is pretty difficult to project in such a small sample size, but the three-point shooting is really enticing. The defensive stats, as well as, the defensive advanced stats, like the defensive box plus minus, he wasn't very good. His last season at Eastern Washington was good during his 6 games at Washington State, but again, small sample size. But if he's able to get defensive stats, that's what we care about. I guess we do care about how good he is as a defender, because if he's a liability that gets stats, then they're not going to play him as much. So we want him to be a good defender. And I think that, what we've seen, whether it be at the combine or those types of numbers, like that stuff helps. And if they took him with the number 12 or 11 overall pick, that's what it was. I have him ranked 12th in my, did I say number 12 pick earlier? I have him ranked 12th in my dynasty rankings. They traded up to take him at 11 from 16. So obviously we're a little worried about somebody else getting him. Those types of things make me think they're going to try and make this thing work. They have these other players that they got in the second round. So it's like Jalen Wells, Vince Williams Jr., like those guys, they're good, but they've invested more in a guy like Cedric Coward. So he may get the benefit of the doubt a little bit more. I think he has a chance to start next season, but at least play a significant role, and then within a season or two could start. Now, he is a bit of a wild card in the sense that, yeah, he played at Eastern Washington and then played 6 games at Washington State. Like, he tested well. He at the combine and things like that showed well. So there's, you can be a little optimistic about that, but there is that sense of, yeah, but what if he just gets into NBA competition and it's not the same? I don't necessarily fully believe that, but it's a thought in the back of my mind. So we'll see. I think just looking at it right now with the situation, as well as who I think he is as a player, I'm pretty excited about Cedric Coward. So like I said, I have him 12th in my current dynasty rankings. All right, next player that we will talk about, let's take a look at Kasparas Jakucionis. I'm going to bring back up on the screen here and then pull up some of his numbers. This past season at Illinois averaged 15 points, 5.7 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 1.6 threes per game, a lot of turnovers, 3.7 per game, 44% shooting, 32% from three, 84.5% from the free throw line. So a little bit optimistic that he is a better shooter than what he showed at Illinois. But the issue here, because when he fell to Miami at 20, and I have him ranked at 14, which is higher than what he ended up being, where he ended up taking him. I would draft him earlier than that, but there is concerns, and Matt Lawson talked about that when he was on the show, because I was a little bit more optimistic, and I still think that he can be really good and could be a starter in the future, even if it's not a phenomenal fit next to Tyler Hero, just because of the defensive issues. But I don't know, Miami just doesn't have a ton of talent. That's what they're known for, is getting the most out of what they have. Players that don't play well elsewhere go to Miami and they figure things out, or they play well in Miami, they go elsewhere and they're not as effective. Those types of things. That's what Miami's known for. And what they've been able to do with first round picks recently has been really, really good. Just looking at what the players they've taken in the first round in the last, I don't think it's a full 10 years since they took Justice Winslow, but maybe it was. But since then, it's been like Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, Jaime Jaquez, and Khalil Ware. That's it. And now it's Jakucionis. So outside of Jaquez, who was a win now piece that was 22 when they took him, it's been a lot of I think all freshmen. No, Ware was a sophomore, but a lot of younger pieces, and they made it work. So I don't think Jakucionis is the best defender, but I think that Miami can get the most out of him. And based on what we saw in college with solid points, rebounds, and assists and threes, not expecting a ton of defensive stats, and it wasn't the most efficient. So maybe he is better in points leagues than he is in category leagues. So maybe you would drop him down a couple spots from 14 in a category leagues, a couple spots up in a points league. But I think him slipping to Miami at 20 may have been some other teams kind of scared away by him, but I think it's kind of like, hey, this guy fell in Miami's lap, and they're like, yeah, we think this guy's much better than 20. Let's try and make this thing work. So I like Jakucionis as a talent. I don't think he's – let me say this. I like him as a fantasy talent. If I were a GM drafting, I don't know if I would have let him slip all the way to 20, but I wouldn't have been super optimistic about drafting him because the defense does concern me. And the turnovers in college do concern me. But this is a guy that, I mean, almost was it 1 rebound or 1 assist away from a triple-double in a NCAA tournament game. Like, there's talent here. This guy can dominate a game on the offensive end. So, and provide a number of things that you would really like to see in fantasy basketball. A lot of points, rebounds, and assists. That stuff looks really good. So, interested to see how he looks in Summer League. Interested to see how they use him in year 1. I think Davion Mitchell probably is a better fit next to Tyler Hero. But we have to look 2 or 3 years down the road. How do these players develop? What do things look like in Miami? Is Tyler Hero a Heat for life, or is he actually we want to kind of see what we can get for you? I don't know exactly what this team looks like. It feels like they've been very hesitant in the past to make those types of big moves. They seem to really love their players. I mean, every time there's a big name on the trade market, it's, oh, Miami was really hesitant to part ways with X, Y, and Z role player. So that's why they didn't make this trade. And it drives Heat fans crazy. But that being said, I think that the talent is worth banking on here with Jakucionis, especially in a situation like Miami where you may not fit exactly what they want to do as a team, but there's not like 3 young recent first-round picks that he's battling out for minutes. It's a good situation for talent to simply win out. All right, next guard we'll talk about. We'll look at Walter Clayton Jr., who the Jazz traded up to take at 18. And I think it's another situation of, okay, they traded up to get him. They're willing to invest a little bit more. They believe in him a little bit more. This past season helped Florida win the national championship, averaging 18.3 points, 3.7 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.2 steals, and 3 threes per game. That's enticing. Specifically the threes. The playmaking's, interesting as well, but the 3-point shooting, I think, is where we're really looking forward to seeing what he can do. And then here's the thing with the situation is Utah has, moves they can make still, but right now it's Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George, Isaiah Collier. And I think we talked about this last season with Collier while he was doing it, is he had a phenomenal rookie year, specifically as a passer. But there are limitations to his game. Did he probably prove that he should have been taken earlier than, I don't remember if it was 28 or 29, 27, somewhere around like that end of the first round. Should he have been taken earlier? Yes. I think he more than proved that during his rookie season. Does that mean that he has to be the franchise point guard and the starter moving forward? No. I think having Isaiah Collier as a reliable reserve playmaker is a totally fine career path for him. Now, could he work on things and become better? Sure. But now you're bringing in a strong point guard option who just won a national championship, who is also a really effective shooter and an efficient shooter. Almost 39% from 3 at 87.5% from the free throw line. those are really, really strong numbers for a college point guard. Keontae George, I think we've been thinking this for a couple of years, basically since he came into the league, is like, oh, this guy can literally become Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson's right there. And I think that's totally another fine career path. And Keontae George as a reserve microwave scorer is really enticing. I think Walter Clayton Jr. could step in and be the best point guard option from day one on this team. I don't know if he will for sure, but could start, or at least some point this upcoming season start. So we're looking at a lot of early minutes here for Walter Clayton. We're looking at a ton of threes, probably the most efficient shooter that's also a lead ball handler on that team. Utah has said they're going to try and push for the playoffs. They're not going to tank again. That's what they're saying. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but if you're going to try and win games next year, I think that there's definitely a case to be made that Walter Clayton Jr. is the best point guard option for that. We'll see how he looks in Summer League. We'll see how he looks in training camp. We'll see how he looks in the preseason. But projecting it out today, they traded up because it seemed like Walter Clayton was going to be drafted by the Heat. They traded up to make sure to add him. And I don't think they gave up a ton where it's like, oh my gosh, they parted ways with this future first-round picks. Like, they must be trying. Like, he's a guy they like. They gave up some seconds. Cool. But I still think that trading up shows, hey, we're interested in this player. We really want to see what he can do. So we'll see if he starts, but I'm really excited to see how they use him over the next couple of seasons as well. Now, is Walter Clayton Jr. good enough for them to say, we have our franchise point guard, we're not drafting a point guard next year? We'll see. I think if you're going in with the expectation that he's now their franchise point guard, it's probably a little bit unreasonable. But if you're going in with the expectation that, hey, he could be their starting point guard this year, depending on how things go, he could maintain that role for a few seasons, I think that's more of an achievable goal. I have him ranked 17th on my initial Dynasty rookie rankings. All right, next guard we're going to talk about is Jase Richardson from Michigan State, who got drafted by the Magic with the 25th pick in the draft. We've been talking about this fit for a while. I think every time I've talked about him, it's been, wow, he fits really well with the Magic. When the Magic had the 16th pick, it was like, oh, okay, like this makes sense for Jase Richardson to be mocked there. Then they trade out, and all of a sudden now they have just 25, and it's, okay, I can see Jase Richardson being mocked there, and I think it'd be a good fit. There were some other teams that it could have worked at, but I think this is ideal. So he averaged 12.1 points, 3.3 rebounds, 1.9 assists, 1.3 threes, 49% from the floor, 41% from three, 84% from the free throw line. Just a really smart, effective player. 6'6" wingspan helps make up for him being 6'1". This listing has him as 6'1.5" without shoes. And he also has a 38-inch vertical. Son of Jase Richardson. I think that's pretty well documented at this point. Just a really efficient player. But the issue that I run into, that teams ran into, which is why he fell to 25 despite being, every advanced stat being in favor of him as a player, because he also only played 25 minutes per game last season. So that's why the numbers were a little bit lower than maybe we'd like to see. But he is undersized, and he's not a true point guard. He is maximized as an off-ball guard, which is why Orlando is the perfect fit. But it's also a little bit about why I'm a little concerned about what he's going to be in fantasy basketball. Because I think 3 rebounds per game at his height was actually pretty decent. Like, it's obviously not going to mean much in fantasy basketball, but it's not like he was like a undersized 1.5 rebound per game player. Like, he's fine, 25 minutes. Not like, I don't want to say he's a bad passer, but he wasn't like a high volume passer in college. And I don't think that He'll be maximized with the ball in his hands in the NBA. And so he can probably get some assists in a secondary, tertiary ball handler role and be an effective, efficient scorer, solid defender, but didn't get a ton of defensive stats. But having the ball in the hands of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, and then Desmond Bane would be next up in the order of who would have the ball. And then Anthony Black's still there. Jalen Suggs, kind of honestly is a good role model for Jace Richardson in the sense that, yes, he's a guard, but he has no problems just being an off-ball point guard in a sense, where he's guarding the smallest player, the point guard of the other team, but he's doesn't necessarily he's not necessarily creating all of the offense. And I think that's probably what we're going to end up seeing from Jace Richardson in the NBA, which is what we were projecting, what we were expecting. And now in Orlando, the ball is going to be in the hands of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. So I think Jace Richardson can be a really good NBA player. I'm not as interested in him in fantasy basketball. I think category leagues more so than points leagues because he is efficient. So you'll get a boost in the percentages, the lack, not a ton of turnovers, but some of the other categories, I don't know how much of a high volume scorer he's going to be. I think he can score, but and we can look, we should look a couple of years out, but it's a little different in Orlando because we'd be pretty surprised if Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner weren't both there 5 years from now. So even if Jace Richardson, say it's like best case scenario, Jace Richardson ends up being a starter in 3 years, Paolo and Franz are still there. So at best, he's a third option on offense. Maybe he's a decent source of steals. I mean, I don't have the per possession stats, which is what I prefer to use, but the per 36-minute stats for Jace Richardson had him at 1.2 steals per game. So maybe he's over a steal per game type of guy, can get you 3 assists, 3-4 rebounds, 12-15 points, and do it efficiently. Like, there's a little value there. I'm just not sure how much upside there is with the way things are projecting out for him. I have him at 24 in my dynasty rank or my rookie rankings for this class. Still really like him as a player, but not super, super optimistic about the landing spot or what he's going to end up being as far as fantasy basketball goes, just to clarify. Trying to see if there's a couple other guards just to mention that are more second round guys. And I'll bring up one more and then kind of talk about all of them while I'm pulling this up. The guy I'm going to bring up is Cam Jones. Let me just find him on this. Who got drafted by Indiana. So what is Indiana getting with Cam Jones? An older point guard, 23 years old, but a guy that can step in, I think, and play minutes right away with Tyrese Halliburton probably missing all of next season, frankly. He averaged 19.2 points, 4.5 rebounds, 5.9 assists, 1.4 steals, just under 2 threes per game. Not a great shooter, but one of the better playmakers in this class and a very efficient playmaker, which the Pacers have a handful of those guys. Like putting injured Nembhard and TJ McConnell in higher usage roles in the NBA Finals against the Thunder. Like, yeah, there were more turnovers, but for the most part, those aren't high turnover guys, and neither is Tyrese Halliburton. So I would assume that the Pacers' backcourt rotation is that Nembhard is the starting point guard next year, and they don't try and just leave him as the shooting guard and start TJ McConnell or anything like that. They probably replace Halliburton in the starting lineup with someone else. They don't replace him with another point guard, but Cam Jones, say TJ McConnell misses a game with an ankle sprain or something minor, then misses 2 games. Cam Jones can fill out that backup point guard role. Nembhard misses a game or two. Maybe they start McConnell. Maybe they start Cam Jones and leave McConnell in his reserve role because that's what he does really well. So interested to see how they use Cam Jones as a rookie. I have him 31st because I do think that the fantasy skill set is solid, can get you steals and assists efficiently, just needs the minutes. And I think especially early on, if you're taking, because this would be in a 30-team league, me taking him first pick of round 2. And I think at that point, like, you're either taking a super high upside swing on some 18 or 19-year-old that basically you're doing the same thing as an NBA team, or you're taking a guy that you think can contribute maybe a little bit immediately if things pan out the right way. And I think that's what you're getting from Cam Jones, is that type of potential production. Javon Small from Memphis, or got drafted by Memphis. I have him at 42. I think that's a pretty interesting pickup. I'm not sure the exact path for minutes with John Morant and Scottie Pippen Jr. there right now, but can be a really good fantasy option. I think that if he gets that opportunity. Chaz Lanier from Tennessee got drafted by Detroit. I don't think he has a really strong fantasy skill set, but fits a number of things that they need and is a really strong shooter. Both Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. are free agents, so maybe he's able to play a good bit as a rookie, as a floor spacer, if they're not able to bring one or both those guys back. I would assume Malik Beasley's back at least, but maybe now Beasley's a starter. They start someone else, and Chaz Lanier's another rotation three-point shooter. I think that's a pretty good landing spot for him. Ryan Nembhard, who went undrafted, is on a two-way with Dallas. Could definitely see a world where he's playing 15 minutes per game off the bench early on next season until Kyrie Irving returns, with the potential to maybe, based on injuries, see some starts early on next season. I think, and I don't know this for sure, but I would assume that this was more of a, hey, don't draft my guy in the second round because we're probably going to just sign with Dallas. We're just going to sign with Dallas on a two-way deal. Don't draft our guy. Because if you look back, I'm double checking this, Dallas didn't have a second round pick. They only had the number 1 pick. So they had no other way to get Ryan Nembhard. Maybe if they had a pick in the 30s, they would have just taken him there. But that happens, especially in the second round. Tim Connolly had his quote about it. I mean, if you look back, Austin Reeves a few years ago, like that, he wasn't an undrafted player, or he was, but he wasn't an undrafted talent. It was, don't draft my guy. We're gonna sign with the Lakers. Okay, cool. I'll draft someone else. That's what happened. So could that have happened with Ryan Nembhard? I think so. Don't know that for sure, but that would be my assumption, especially when you have these players that they sign these two-way deals 5-10 minutes after the draft ends. Like, that wasn't like, okay, draft ends, boom, you want two-way? Okay, yeah. Like, they've talked about these things already. So I don't know if it would have been, hey, if he gets drafted, first 40 or like 31 through 40 or 45, then like we're just going to go. But after that, then you start making calls, trying to figure things out. So maybe there was a team that wanted to take him in the 50s. I don't know. I think that it's an ideal situation for him to come in, and Ryan Nembhard was the best passer, or like led college basketball in assists last year, I believe. Averaged 10, or is it 9 point something? Hold on. I don't want to make claims and not verify them. 9.8 assists per game last year. College basketball. So, yeah, dude can pass. But that's going to do it. We're talking about the guards. As I said, just a pre-recorded episode, so hopefully no major moves have happened that totally just make what I said on this irrelevant. We'll talk about wings. We'll talk about bigs the next 2 days. And then I'll be back on Thursday to record an episode on Thursday. So any big moves that have happened, we'll talk about then. And then other stuff before we get into Summer League. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Young Man Squad Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Check out some of our recent episodes. Really enjoyed talking about this draft. Had some fun guests on. Like, comment, subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at NoRuben22. That's going to do it, and I will see you guys tomorrow.